incredible resource that I absolutely love today, the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. Jim Trelease is today the expert on reading aloud to children and all the benefits and all the outcomes and how wonderful it is. He was raised being read to out loud by his parents, and then he read aloud to his children. He says it all started in the introduction to the book, which I think you should get and read because it's so cute. It's not very long. He says, how did a parent come to write this book? Well, he was going along and he was reading to his children because he loved to. This was in the 60s. He had 2 children, and he was an artist and writer for a daily newspaper in Massachusetts. And he would read to his daughter and son. He says, I didn't understand anything except for that I thought it was a lot of fun. I didn't know the cognitive, the emotional, the academic benefits that were going to come from this simple activity that I was doing with my children. I just thought it was a great idea some parents should do. So he's going along, and he was doing some volunteer work in a classroom of 6-year-olds, and he spent an hour in the class with them, and he was gathering up his materials, and as he was walking out the door, he saw The Bear's House by Marilyn Sachs, and it caught his eye because he had just finished reading it to his daughter. So we asked the class who just finished reading this book, and several of the girls raised their hands, and then they started talking about books that they read that they loved to read, and he says it was this love fest about reading, talking about them, about the books. And then he starts telling the story. Did you know that Robert McCloskey was illustrating Make Way for Ducklings, and he had a dreadful time drawing those ducks? They kept moving around, and so he tells this story about reading out loud, and 45 minutes later they've had this wonderful experience talking about the joy of reading. He goes on, he says that I'd been giving them book reports. As soon as I called it that, I realized that was what made it was so special. It was probably the first time any of them had ever heard an adult give a book report or an unsolicited one. It was like a commercial for reading. Adults on fire and in love with reading, talking to children about how much fun it was to read. So they all caught on fire. Well, this turns into speaking at schools, and then he's traveling speaking at schools, and he does all this research. He realizes that children aren't reading a lot, that they don't love to read. He does all this research and realizes all the benefits of reading aloud to your children, how it preps them for school and how it makes them better students, and they get better grades, and they do better, and because of their better grades, they do better as individuals, and they have more confidence, and they go to college more, and just all these incredible benefits. So by the late 70s, he realizes that there's nothing generally available for parents on reading aloud, not even a book list. So I compiled my own, a modest self-published venture. Some local bookstores took copies, and within 3 years, the booklet had sold 20,000 copies in 30 states and Canada. So he's promoting it, and he's speaking at all these schools, and he's telling the children, and the teachers and all this kind of thing, but it really does very, very well on its own. He's selling these booklets that he's written. By 1982, Penguin Books had seen a copy and asked me to expand it into the first edition. And then it was called a few months after the first Penguin edition of the Read Aloud Handbook was published, and this is the fun part of the story, someone gave a young graduate student a copy on the occasion of his becoming a new parent, which I think is a great gift when somebody has a child. Give them the Read Aloud Handbook. He then gave a copy of it to an Arlington, Virginia couple expecting a child for whom he was doing part-time carpentry work, and this Arlington mother did more than just read the book. She wrote and sent an unsolicited book report about it to a national syndicated advice columnist, a woman named Abigail Van Buren. And when her letter appeared in the Dear Abby column with Abby's response on February 23, 1983, Penguin received orders almost overnight for 120,000 copies of the book. February 23rd is celebrated as Dear, Dear Abby Day in our home. So he had been doing well. He had sold 20,000 copies, so Penguin realized this is a book people want. So they picked it up and they were publishing it. But as soon as Dear Abby picked it up, it just went crazy. It's funny too, because I've been running in educational circles for a long, long time, This happened in 1983, and I didn't find out about this book until in the last couple of years. So it's out there, it's popular, people use it, but I wanted you to know about it because I didn't know about it when my children were young, and I wish I would have had it. Now, it's gotten really, really long. And there's 150 pages of all this evidence of why you should read to your children. There's lots of stories. It's very readable. And if you kind of really need to be convinced, or you want to kind of know what the statistics are and how it's going to help your kids, read it, because he's got a lot of success stories in here and a lot of great information about how to do it well, the cute little pictures and statistics and and that kind of thing. Sustained silent reading, reading aloud's natural partner. He just goes into a whole bunch of aspects of reading that's really valuable for you to have. Then the last half of it, a little less than a half, is the treasury of read alouds, how to use the treasury. Now, this is a good book list because it's a little bit more about his opinion of why it's a good book rather than just a flat plot summary. And I value those more. That's why I do this What to Read blog, because I value an individual telling me why it was meaningful to them more than I value just a plot summary. Plot summary doesn't really mean anything to me. And I also love that he's taken, he'll highlight, let me see if I can find one for you, high scoring sports picture books. So there's a handful of these boxes, can you see that? Where he highlights some of his very favorites, and you can start there. Now, he's a good moral man, and he's chosen good books. Of course, I've not even begun to touch reading all the books that are on this list. I have some of them, a few of them, and I like them. But I just want to touch on the fact that he isn't trying to give you a moral or a character-based foundation. Definitely, he's a father. He doesn't want to take away from that. So the books aren't going to be immoral. I don't think. I can't speak to all of them. If you get this book and you read one of them, you know, you send me a note and say that was a bad book. You know, if it is, let me know. I'll let everybody know. But I think the books are all going to be clean and just fine. But they might not be the books that are going to build character in the same way that we talk about here. But they're valuable. They're a place to start. It's a good reading list. And some of his favorites are some of my favorites. And he values some of the ones I value. And he's got funny ones and really good ones. Jim's favorite dog stories. So that's really great. He's got Old Yeller and Lassie and Where the Red Fern Grows, all some of my favorites. And they're character building classics. So this, more than anything else, is a book list that I want to give you. A very valuable book list that I think you should own. But also, the first half of it is going to give you a lot more information about the reading process and the importance of reading. And reading is the foundational tool for education. As much as we may try to get away from that, it's just the foundation of education. You really can't educate yourself without reading. So you want to read well. And he talks about the value of increasing your vocabulary, your comprehension, your speed, all those wonderful things that come from being read to and reading silently. Also, there's a lot of one other really great thing to do is begin a book aloud and then let your children pick it up and finish reading it. I've done that. That's worked as well. So, the Read Aloud Handbook by Jim Trelease. I'll link his site to you. He's always on the lookout for more information. I don't know that it's as active as it once was. He is getting older. I mean, his children were young in the 60s. I don't know how active that website is, but it has other resources and material on it too. But the book is the main source of information, and he's got audio book information in the back and classics and all that kind of good stuff. So, Jim Trelease, Read Aloud Handbook. If this was really valuable information to you, then please pass it on to a friend and let them know about what we do here at the Ten Boom Institute, and like us on Facebook. Join our email list so you can get updates on our programs, especially the reading programs as we release them over time. And make a comment. Let us know if this book was valuable to you and other books that you would like us to review. Send us in questions for Q&A Tuesday and let us know how we can better serve you on this blog. See you next time.